365 days. That's all it takes. 1 year of conflict to unravel what took decades to build. You won't see this war on the battlefield. You'll see it in empty factories, worthless currency, and shattered futures. This is the invisible war.
Every economy is a delicate machine, interlocking gears of production, trade, and trust. Before war, money flows, markets grow, families plan for tomorrow. But what happens when the machine breaks? A functioning economy moves like blood through veins. Goods cross borders, ships arrive on schedule, workers earn wages that hold their value. This system doesn't just exist, it must be actively maintained every single day.
Investor confidence, trade agreements, stable currency, infrastructure that works. These aren't luxuries. They're the foundation. And foundations, once cracked, don't easily repair themselves. Let's begin with what stability actually looks like.
A healthy economy produces value continuously. This factory represents thousands like it, transforming raw materials into products, creating jobs, generating tax revenue. Each worker here contributes to GDP, the measure of a nation's total economic output.
Agricultural exports feed both domestic markets and international trade. These fields represent food security and foreign exchange earnings. In peacetime, harvest predictions influence national budgets, written months in advance.
At the household level, economic stability means predictability. Families spend, save, and invest because they trust tomorrow will resemble today. This confidence isn't emotional, it's mathematical, based on observable patterns. Modern economies are interconnected networks. A small nation trades semiconductors. An agricultural giant exports wheat. Energy producers supply fuel. Each specialization creates dependencies, efficient in peace, catastrophic in conflict. War begins not with economic collapse, but with uncertainty. The announcement alone sends shockwaves. Investors don't wait for actual destruction. They react to possibility. Capital is cowardly. It flees at the first sign of danger. Within hours, stock markets plunge. Foreign investors liquidate positions. Currency reserves hemorrhage as central banks attempt to defend exchange rates. This isn't panic. It's rational actors pricing in chaos they cannot quantify. Currency value depends on stability and trust. When war erupts, that trust evaporates. The exchange rate, how much your money is worth abroad, collapses. Imports become expensive overnight. Savings lose purchasing power before a single shot is fired. Trade routes close. Airspace becomes contested. Insurance premiums for cargo shipments increase tenfold, then become unavailable entirely. International commerce, the lifeblood of modern economies, begins immediate clotting. Citizens rush to withdraw savings, fearing bank closures or currency devaluation. This bank run forces institutions to limit withdrawals, freezing the money supply. Financial paralysis spreads faster than any military advance.
Businesses face impossible calculations. Do they continue operations with unstable supply chains, flee to safer jurisdictions, lay off workers preemptively? Most choose survival over principle. Economic activity contracts, not from damage, but from fear.
Consumer spending, typically 60 to 70% of GDP, collapses. Why buy a new television when tomorrow is uncertain? Households shift to survival mode. Retail, hospitality, and entertainment sectors implode first. Panic buying accelerates. People hoard non-perishables, medicine, fuel. This rational individual behavior creates collective disaster. Supply chains, designed for steady, predictable demand, cannot handle sudden spikes. Shortages appear even before actual disruption occurs. Manufacturing requires certainty, predictable inputs, reliable energy, accessible markets. War destroys all three. Factories shut down, not always from direct hits, but from broken supply chains. No steel means no production, means no revenue.
Energy infrastructure becomes a primary target. Even without strikes, Fuel supplies vanish, natural gas imports halt, coal shipments stop, power grids operate intermittently, industries requiring constant electricity, chemical plants, data centers, hospitals face impossible choices.
Transportation networks collapse, railways, vulnerable to sabotage, shut down, trucks can't secure fuel, ports close to commercial shipping. This isn't inconvenience, it's economic suffocation. Products cannot reach markets, even if production continues. Refineries process crude oil into usable fuel. When they go offline, the entire economy loses mobility. Agriculture can't harvest. Ambulances can't respond. Distribution networks freeze. Petroleum isn't just energy, it's economic circulation.
Inventory becomes liability. These products, once valuable assets, now represent capital trapped and deteriorating. Companies that survived initial shocks face secondary crisis. Goods produced but undeliverable. Debts owed but revenue vanished.
Capital investment, money spent on future growth, evaporates completely. This half-built structure represents pension funds, bank loans, and years of planning. Construction employs millions. When projects halt, unemployment cascades through the economy. Temporary closures become permanent. Equipment deteriorates without maintenance. Skilled workers scatter. Intellectual capital, the knowledge of how to operate these systems, dissolves. Reopening isn't simple reversal. Aerial views reveal the scope. Industrial districts that once hummed 24 hours fall silent. The lights going out aren't just electricity. They're employment, tax revenue, and economic output vanishing. GDP contraction begins measuring in double digits.
Governments, desperate to fund defense, print money. Central banks abandon inflation targets. The currency supply expands while the economy contracts. Classic stagflation. Each new banknote dilutes every existing one. Savings become worthless, not through spending, but through printing.
Prices don't rise uniformly. Essential goods, food, medicine, fuel, spike first. A month's salary buys what a week's did before, then a day's. Hyperinflation isn't a concept, it's mathematical. When prices double every few weeks, money becomes meaningless.
In modern economies, most money is digital, but ones and zeros obey the same laws. As inflation accelerates, purchasing power evaporates. Even while nominal account balances remain unchanged, the number stays the same. Its meaning dissolves.
A loaf of bread becomes an economic indicator. How many hours of work does it cost? How much of your savings? When basic nutrition consumes most income, everything else, education, healthcare, investment, becomes impossible luxury. Currency controls fail. Black markets emerge. Official exchange rates diverge wildly from street rates. Citizens scramble for hard currency. Dollars, euros, anything stable. The national currency becomes local joke, then tragic reality.
Lifetime savings evaporate. Pensions become insufficient. Retirement plans collapse. The social contract, work hard, save money, secure your future, breaks. This betrayal isn't political. It's mathematical consequence of economic warfare. Households shift from planning to surviving. Debt accumulates not from excess but necessity. Credit cards max out buying food. The middle class, that stable economic foundation, vanishes into poverty within months.
Children's savings, parents' emergency funds, grandparents' inheritance, all shatter together. Inflation is the cruelest tax. It strikes hardest those with least economic sophistication, the elderly, poor, the financially illiterate. No one votes for it. Everyone suffers it.
Education stops. Universities close. Students abandon studies to find work or flee. A generation's intellectual development pauses. This isn't just personal tragedy. It's permanent economic damage. Human capital, once lost, requires decades to rebuild.
Trained professionals face impossible choice: stay and suffer, or leave and survive. Doctors, engineers, programmers, exactly the expertise needed for recovery, migrate first. They're most mobile, most valuable globally. Brain drain accelerates economic decline.
Skilled labor represents years of training and experience. When workers abandon their trades, that knowledge vanishes. Reopening this factory later won't just require equipment, it'll require retraining an entirely new workforce.
Higher education collapses completely. Research stops. Innovation ceases. The pipeline of future doctors, scientists, and entrepreneurs dries up. Economic recovery requires human capital, but conflicts systematically destroy it.
Demographics shift catastrophically. Young professionals leave. Families with children flee. Those remaining are disproportionately elderly, poor, or trapped. The population that remains cannot generate the economic activity needed for recovery.
Childhood education interruption creates permanent deficits. A year of missed school reduces lifetime earning potential measurably. Multiply this across millions of children, and you're looking at decades of reduced economic productivity.
Innovation requires stability. Research and development spending vanishes. Patents go unfiled. Technological progress halts. While other nations advance, conflict zones fall behind. This gap, once opened, compounds annually like reverse interest.
No modern economy exists in isolation. When one nation collapses, trade partners suffer immediate revenue loss. Global supply chains fragment. Companies dependent on specific inputs scramble for alternatives. Economic pain radiates outward in concentric circles.
Energy markets respond globally. Oil, natural gas, and coal prices spike worldwide. Conflict in one producer nation affects heating costs in distant countries. Inflation exports itself through commodity markets, spreading economic pain across continents.
Food security becomes geopolitical weapon. Major wheat exporters in conflict send shockwaves through global grain markets. Bread prices in Africa rise because of battles in Europe. Hunger globalizes faster than aid can respond. Financial contagion spreads. Investors flee emerging markets generally, not just the conflict zone. Risk premiums increase globally. Development projects in unrelated countries lose funding. One nation's war taxes the entire developing world.
Human displacement creates fiscal crises for neighboring nations. Each refugee requires housing, food, medical care, education. Host countries, often poor themselves, strain under costs. International aid never matches need. Economic burden compounds humanitarian tragedy.
Agricultural disruption triggers famine chains. Conflicts reduce global food supply, just as displaced populations require aid. Relief organizations compete with commercial buyers. Food prices spiral. The world's poorest, totally uninvolved in the conflict, starve.
Logistics networks optimize for efficiency, not resilience. Rerouting global shipping around conflict zones increases costs drastically. Container shortages appear in unexpected locations. Just-in-time manufacturing fails. Globalization's vulnerabilities manifest. Stock markets from New York to Tokyo reflect interconnected pain. Pension funds suffer. Retirement savings decline. Middle-class wealth globally contracts. A regional conflict creates worldwide recession. In modern economics, there is no such thing as someone else's problem.
Every conflict eventually ends, but economic recovery doesn't automatically follow. Two paths emerge: rapid reconstruction with international support, or prolonged stagnation with institutional collapse. The difference determines generations of outcomes. War's financial cost survives the conflict. Governments borrow massively from international institutions, foreign nations, domestic sources. This debt burden constrains budgets for decades. Tomorrow's schools and hospitals pay for yesterday's destruction.
Physical reconstruction is slowest recovery phase. Each destroyed bridge, factory, and power plant requires capital, materials, and time. Optimistic estimates measure in years. Realistic ones measure in decades. Infrastructure doesn't rebuild itself.
Economic growth trajectories shift permanently. Pre-war growth rates rarely return. Like tree rings showing drought years, GDP charts display the scar. Compound growth lost in conflict years never recovers. It's simply gone.
Best case scenario, Marshall Plan-style reconstruction aid, institutional reform, renewed foreign investment. Worst case, corrupt rebuilding, aid dependency, continued instability. The difference often depends on factors beyond economics: governance, social cohesion, international support.
Some human capital returns. Emigrants, seeing stability restored, come back, but many stay abroad. Their children grow up elsewhere, educated in foreign universities, integrated into different economies. That intellectual capital doesn't repatriate easily.
Monetary systems rebuild slowly. New currency, backed by international reserves. Central bank independence restored. Inflation targeting resumed. But trust, once shattered, requires years to heal. People remember when money became worthless.
Industrial capacity returns incompletely. Modern factory reopens but operates at 40% capacity. Supply chains remain fragile. Skilled workers are scarce. Export markets, lost to competitors, don't automatically return. Recovery exists, but scarred.
Economic data eventually stabilizes. GDP resumes growth, though from a lower baseline. Employment recovers, though wages lag. Markets function again, though investors remain cautious. The numbers improve, but numbers tell incomplete stories.
This child will inherit an economy shaped by decisions they didn't make. Reduced infrastructure, depleted human capital, debt burden, lower growth trajectory. Their opportunities constrained because of events beyond their control. This is war's true generational cost.
Time, they say, heals all wounds. But time cannot replace lost years. Education interrupted, careers destroyed, innovations unborn. Economic time is unidirectional. You cannot reclaim the compound growth of missed decades.
The invisible war leaves visible scars, not just in broken buildings, but in broken trajectories. A nation that could have been prosperous instead struggles. A generation that could have thrived instead survives. This is the true price of conflict, not just what is destroyed, but what never gets built. 365 days, 1 year, but consequences that echo for lifetimes. The question isn't whether nations can survive war. They can. The question is, at what cost, and who pays it? Because in economics, as in physics, nothing is ever truly free. Every action has consequences. Every war has bills. And those bills always come due.